Welcome to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here today with Don Stanek. Don is here with us from Newport Beach, but now lives in Idaho, or is it Iowa?
Iowa. It's,
Iowa,
but I divide my time between, I still am in Southern California and Des Moines, Iowa.
Des Moines, Iowa. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, let's bring Don on. Don is here from, I get Ohio and Iowa mixed up. Okay.
Just say Idaho. It'll be okay.
Sorry. Anyway, we are here with Don, and I'm so excited to have him here today. He is a former realtor, and now he is a full-time coach. And so this is going to be super exciting because we're going to learn so much. We're going to learn a lot about Don, and we're also going to learn a lot about coaching and his history and how he brought his personal into his branding, into his coaching. And if I was to read everything about him, it would take 5 hours. So we won't be hitting on all of that, but we're going to hear a lot of fun stories from Don. And before we get started, I'm going to introduce Don. Don Stanek has over 30 years of experience in home sales management, and coaching agents to be their best. He is a founding member of Agile.
Yep.
Reagile coach and currently serves as its principal. Don Stanek has overseen $3.5 billion in transactions throughout his career. As a founding member of Reagile Coach Stanek has his vast professional experience and created agile-based sales coaching and private mentoring platform that currently serves the needs of realtors, mortgage lenders, an array of self-employed individual contributors and sales leaders. He attributes his success to his relentless pursuit of selling excellence and the discipline he acquired while serving in the United States Marine Corps. Today's interview and questions will be blending Don's personal experience, professional advice, and actionable insights for our listeners. I am so excited to have you here. Welcome, Don.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So excited. I want to talk a little bit. I'm just mesmerized. So you started in the Marines, and then I want to know, can you share how you went from the Marines? This was over 30 years ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
And how you went from the Marines and how that was, and how long were you in the Marines, and how your time shaped your approach to real estate and your real estate coaching. I would love to hear that.
Great questions. I'll try to get that done in just a couple of minutes.
Okay, we have an hour.
I was bored. No, I'm just kidding. I was one of those kids that just didn't know what the heck they wanted to do when they grew up. And I think a lot of realtors that I interact with today kind of are in that same spot. So I graduated high school early, and I went right into the Marine Corps right around my 18th birthday because I just didn't want to go to college right away. And it's just not something that I cared about. And I came from a little tiny town in north of Chicago, and I'm like, just frustrated. I got to get the hell out of here, right? Because that's like every kid. They got to get out. So I plunged into the Marine Corps, and the first thing they did is put me into college for 2 years. Whoops. And so I was an aviation electronics technician in the Marine Corps, and I served during the first Gulf War. And I was in for a total of about 6 years. And, I kind of got to a point relatively early in my enlistment where I kind of had this epiphany. It was great to serve my country. I was all in, but I also kind of had this thing where I'm like, holy crap, I joined the Marine Corps. Well, what the heck was I thinking, right?
Your brain started to mature and catch up with your, at 18, you were like, okay.
It's kind of like it's a slip and fall. What happened? So instead of just kind of, like whatever situation you're in, you can make the best of whatever you're in, right? And so I did have some intermittent free time and time off in the Marines, and that's when I actually got my real estate license. So my last year and a half in the Marine Corps was actually my first year and a half as being a realtor. Wow. And so I was kind of plugging along and learning how to do the business. And then the first Gulf War broke out, and then it was more complicated to door knock, when you're not in the country any. So I got back and got out of the Marines. I'm 24, totally burned out. My wife was gone. I'm 24. I'm like 24 years old. And I'm like, my whole life is over.
Oh
And
my.
a buddy of mine said, well, gosh, you know what? Why don't you go sell houses for a home builder? And I said, well, all right. sounds sounds like I could do that.
You were
So
so young. You'd already lived like 6 years of a full life. And
I
24.
know
Wow.
what happened. So I got a job with a company called Kaufman and Broad Homes, and so that's KB Home, and then I just started going very deep into new homes, and so I did that for a number of years. Got into management, senior management, executive level management. Left that, and then went deep into resale. And so I've managed a Christie's International for LA County. I've managed a Remax franchise, and over the years, I guess the things that informed me about my past in terms of my future was that I need to learn more. Like I'm probably that consummate student where I didn't want that classic education, and I just couldn't see myself sitting in a classroom, learning more about trigonometry that I'm really never going to use, or engineering, or all these things. And so, but what I did learn is once you get into the real world, and there, you realize that there is cause and effect, and there's system, and there's process, and there's discipline, and all those things that we're supposed to learn in college or high school or the Marines. They serve us well if you don't forget. Like you just don't forget. And so I've kind of adapted these basic concepts and said, all right, if I woke up today and I didn't know anything, what would I need to learn first? If I let go of some of my preconceived ideas of how things are supposed to be, and I just measured what was actually happening, how would that inform my behavior? And so I kind of took those next steps. I dabbled in software development over the years, as well as still being in the business, paying my bills exclusively through real estate transaction and management. But I also evolved to that point where there has to be a better system and a process and a method for coaching agents, for recruiting agents, for crafting out leaders. Like it's so difficult for me to find people in our in our industry that I really look up to and think, man, that person's they're innovative and they're interesting and they're talking to me like directly. And I appreciate that you're walking across the hot, let's go walk across hot coals, for God's sakes. Like, all right, so but how's that going to help me run a better business? Like, so many of the things that happen in our industry, and some of the other coaches, and I just think there's a huge disconnect between the things they say and the things that actually have to happen to help people become successful. And so
So
Reagile was born.
So tell me, yeah. So let's skip right over to that. So, if you will, can you name? I never did. I have never participated in a coaching program before.
Yeah.
Been in this business over 30 years and have never done that. And so I know there's a ton of coaches out there. Can you name three? We have an audience who might be interested in, getting a coach,
Yeah.
hiring you as a coach. Can you name just three coaching systems out there or coaches out there, and
Sure.
then tell us a little bit about what they do, and then tell us what you do, so we can make, because it sounds like you're kind of like me. Well, realtor over 30 years, and also coach, but I coach on systems and accountability and follow through, which it kind of sounds like possibly that's like you. I'm not the other style of a coach
Yeah.
about. Anyway, so why don't you tell us the differences, name three, and then compare and
Yeah,
contrast and
so there's the big ones out there, and I'll just be honest. I hope I don't offend anyone because that's never my intention. But I've been in the business for over 33 years, and I just have difficulty finding mentors that I can just believe in. And
yeah.
so, you got the Tom Ferries and the Mike Ferry and the Tom Ferries of the world, and they in my mind they aren't really coaches. What they are is they're aggregators of other people's information. And so people will tell me, well, I'm in Tom Ferry coaching and it's $1,200 or a month or whatever it is, and I'll say, well, okay, that's great. So how is Tom? And there's crickets because they don't talk to Tom Ferry. They're talking to another realtor who went through Tom Ferry training, which isn't even Tom Ferry, by the way. It's outsourced to a company in Texas, just to let you know.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. He's got an organization, and some people will buy into the program, and some people will become very successful there. And I'm not taking away from that. I'm just not. I personally feel it's too expensive, and I also feel like it's his dad, even worse, Mike. You know, I remember sitting in a large conference room in Anaheim, California, in the late or early 1990s, late 1980s. And Mike Ferry, like there's 600 people in this room, and he's basically threatening people: get out your credit card. If you had a commitment, you'd get out your credit card. And you know, I'm sitting there, and I was still in the Marine Corps, and I'm like, wow, this guy's, you know, I thought this guy's horrible, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to measure your commitment by your credit card. You're just not going to do that. And so I found that stuff is real, just too prescriptive, prescriptive, right? It's not tailored enough. Then there's other big, you know, like Southwestern Coaching is out there, and you know, they're a company that has really been on the planet since, you know, the 1800s. They used to sell Bibles, believe it or not, in the 1800s. And then they created Great American Opportunities, and that was how to teach kids how to do door-to-door sales for fundraisers. And then they kind of took this kind of highly prescriptive, regimented thing and made Southwestern Coaching for realtors. And again, very expensive, very prescriptive. And so how my method differs is really simply this: I follow a pattern of that the same people use for project management in software development. And so, just to, you know, digress a little bit, there's two basic types of project management on the planet, and there's waterfall, like waterfall method, and that's how you get man on the moon, right? Everything's got to be figured out before you launch. And but software development really took hold in the 1980s, and you really couldn't have waterfall methodology because by the time you deploy the software 3 years down the road, it's already obsolete. And so agile methodology started coming into popular, you know, it was more popularized in terms of how do you run a project. So what I do is I take an individual and I run them like a project, right? And what are they good at? And what do they need help with? And what are they never going to learn? Right? I'm not going to try to force a bunch of stuff into this person's reality. That's just not going to happen. Now, if it's still something that they need to be successful, then we're going to have to find a way to pay somebody else to do it. Right? That's all there is to it. So what I do is in an agile environment with coaching is I ask real simple questions. What do you need to get done today? What do you need to get done by the end of the week? And then we talk about resources and impediments. And that's it. So now there's still goals, but these goals are something that I call sprints, right? So what we do is we have maybe a 4-week or a 5-week sprint, and then we have weekly calls, and it focuses in on what you need to do. So I coach currently about 225 realtors across the country, and I do it just me. And so
Wow.
I don't have any other coaches. And here's another crazy thing. I have an open calendar. So anybody who wants to talk to me can go book 15 minutes anytime they want, including anybody within the sound of my voice right now. Or once this is resyndicated, for gosh sakes, just still grab 15 minutes on my calendar, right?
Wow. I
That's
love
it.
it.
Well, why is that? Because the vast majority of realtors need help, but the vast majority of realtors are not going to seek it out at that time, right? And
Yeah.
so I started approaching the whole coaching philosophy just like a listing agent. If 6% of people are going to list their property today, I need to be attractive to 100% of those people, but I need to have a compelling message to the 6% who are ready to hear me. Same with coaching. Most people reach out to me when when they're in crisis, and then we fix it, and then they don't call, and then they disengage. and then they have crisis,
And then they
and
call
then
back.
they disengage. And so I preach a lot of gospel around system and process and method. Like, I don't care that you pay $1,000 for KV Core. I don't.
What's
My
KV Core? What's
Oh,
KV Core?
KV Core is the largest CRM
Oh, okay.
methodology in the country. They have about 300,000 subscribers. KV Core. A
Okay.
lot of the big companies use it. And so, but I ask a simple question. I'm like, all right, is that CRM? Like, it's a wonderful tool, but what do you do with it? Number one, and let me ask you a question: how many people in your database? And number one, number two, how many of those people are going to transact in the next 12 months? And then there's crickets because they're engaging in a technology, a system, and they don't really have a method. They have no methodology behind that system in order to do one simple thing: advance the relationship.
Mm.
That's it. Everything that you should be doing around your follow-up methodology should be geared toward, I'm either driving toward a face-to-face encounter, or I'm creating an environment that people would want to engage me at some point in the future.
Instead
um,
of just set it and let it do its automatic and
I
forget
don't
it.
think there's anything more offensive than
Right.
a lot of this automated stuff. And here's what's crazy. I do have some technology chops. Like, I'm proficient. I understand AI well, and I execute on all these different things. But here's the bottom line: are you advancing the relationship?
Right.
So my example simple. You have husband, a wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. If you put that person on a drip campaign and had no other communication with them, how long is that relationship going to last? And the answer is, it's not going to last at all. Now, I don't need you to go that deep with your professional relationships, but I do need you to take responsibility for them. And this means you got to make a phone call, for God's sakes. You're going to have
Right.
to go have coffee with someone, right? You can't just broadcast how wonderful you are and, like, oh, I'm so attractive. Your podcast is so attractive. I'm not going to have, that's all I need, right?
Right. It's about developing relationships. So I want to come back and talk about the CRM because I've never done it because I got so
Okay.
overwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a commercial break, but let's come back and I do want to speak more about the CRM and keeping in contact and developing those
Okay.
personal relationships. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm Debbi DiMaggio, your host, and we're here with Don Stanek, and we are talking about his coaching business. So we were just speaking about CRM. So I tried to engage a CRM. At one point, I got them all my database into a CRM, but then I kind of stopped. So let's talk about how, when you're coaching your clients, your real estate agents, let's talk about not what they shouldn't be doing. Let's talk about how you're coaching them to be successful with their CRM. And my
Right.
first question is, are they nurturing 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people? Where are we starting with the CRM? And let's elaborate a little bit on the successful CRM.
Great question. And it's a huge separation of conversation that I have with everybody with whom I coach. And that is, there's a big difference between a system and a process. And a system is your computer, a system is index cards, a system is notebook and a pencil. System. A process is, what is your behavior? What is your behavior around that system? And what kind of results are you getting? That's simple. And so one of the reasons I had such a fetish with CRM is, when I was starting out, I was shy and I had a hard time engaging people because I was an electronics geek, for God's sake. I'm a tweaker. And so I thought, man, if I could like make a fembot, like if I could design this perfect thing and I'd hit a button and it would go like meet people, then I'd be fine. I got this right. Wrong. So, however, I did create. My wife and I actually have craziness. We coded, computer
Oh,
coded the CRM from scratch. We ended up selling it to a large company,
Wow, congrats.
And that was a lot of fun. But here's the thing. The reason we sold it is because after I've completed the whole process and a couple $100,000 into it, the adoption rate on someone getting a CRM and using it, the adoption rate's incredibly low. And it's
Wow.
because we're realtors, for God's sakes. We don't want to have to deal with another freaking system. I want to talk to people. I want to go have cocktails. Can we get some catering in here? Um, and so, so here's the deal. You need some kind of organization, but keep it simple. If you're using a CRM, I would first hope that you would not bother with that. I would first hope that you would have open an Excel spreadsheet, for God's sakes. It's free. Excel
That's
is free
exactly how I start my coaching. Just start with an Excel spreadsheet. Before you even get your license, just start doing that now.
because it's a sales job. Every sales job has a prospect list. And if you think otherwise, you live in California. Okay. So you got to have a prospect list. And so what I do is I flush out all the fear of engagement with that in like the first day or two. I need you to put everybody you know on the planet on the spreadsheet. And if they own a property, I need their property address and their email and their phone number. I don't care. I don't care what their kid's name is. I don't care if they like pets. I don't give a crap if they have the best cupcake recipe on the planet. Do they own a property? Yes or no? That's it. All right. That's it. And it's not popular with some of the people that I coach because I'm like, well, I've got this system and I send out the birthday cards and the dog's birthday card and da 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 da. It's like Brian Buffini, right? Oh, I just happen to be stopping by. Oh my God. Don't I live in an open carry state. Do me a favor. Just don't stop by. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, real simple spreadsheet. You have these people on there. And then here's why I love Excel. It's because it's a universal donor. I don't care what system you might graduate into out of Excel. You're going to be able to upload an Excel document into any CRM on the planet. If not, then for God's sakes, don't buy that system, because if it doesn't speak with Microsoft products, you got a problem, right? So, but why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I need to drive someone's behavior before I drive the tool, right? So in software development, this is what we build a business case before we find a solution. Got it?
Yeah.
So this is part of agile methodology. I'm not going to craft out a solution until I understand the problem. Well, the problem is I need to keep track of people, but they need to like me. And I need to understand what their future behavior looks like. And that's it. And I need to add more people. Like I have three things that I need to deal with. I don't need to deal with 50 fields. Just don't need it. Then it's really simple from there. I show people how to utilize the MLS tools that they're already paying for to reach out to somebody, to prepare them to make a simple phone call. Hey, sent you a market snapshot on your property. Just wanted to make sure you got it. Do you have any questions? No? Oh, what's this all about? Well, this is the market activity that's happening in your neighborhood. I'm an expert in your neighborhood. I track that stuff. Oh, okay, great. I'm not selling. Oh, that's fine. Because if you were selling, I'd actually have to come by and take a look at your property. Now, holy mackerel, like if 6% of the population's contemplating or is actually going to do it, and it takes 12 months to consider to do it, to sell before you list, and it takes another 9 months on the buy side person to contemplate it, that means about 9.5 to 10% of your database is either transacting, seriously thinking about transacting, or they're going to do it in the next 12 months. That's it, period. Do they remember you? Do they like you? Are you providing value? So believe it or not, I have people that just send out a market snapshot on an annual basis, but here's what happens. Their business doubles and triples very,
They're
very
sending
quickly.
out this market snapshot to all the people on their list.
Right. And they do it on the anniversary of the transaction.
Okay.
It's that time of
Nice.
year again, right? So in the first year, you're going to find the 6% of people who are thinking about it because you're making the call and you get the voicemail. Hey, it's Don Stanek with ABC Realty. Just want to make sure you got that thing that I emailed you about your house. Great. So the pessimist out there is going to say, well, I don't need to do that. I can set it up on an automatic drip system. I don't have to talk to those bastards. And you're like, are you are you advancing the relationship? It's my only question. Are you advancing the relationship? So I have a lot of other methodologies around that. But what I don't love about complicated computer systems is just one of the things I don't love about social media and I don't love about AI, right? What this is a distraction. It's another system to occupy your time. And unless you really are focused on how to make that tool productive, then what you're doing is you're wasting time, period. I don't know. There might be somebody within the sound of my voice that finds themselves on social media flicking and flicking and flick. I better like that, and I know a lot about social media. I know a lot about the algorithm. I know about other people who use it successfully. But at the end of the day, for God's sakes, if you do that for 2 hours a day, I bet I could give you another activity for 2 hours a day that's going to be infinitely more efficient and productive,
That's
right?
my next question. So, aside from the market snapshot, so we've got this list, we've got our Excel spreadsheet, we've got some possibly warm bodies. What
Yep.
are other things, other activities we could do now with this CRM? And what is the agent? I'm an agent. What should I be doing every day? Should I just be out making coffee dates like 6 times throughout the day? What activities should I be doing, and how are we using that list beyond just the one
Yep.
year lease
So
market
Debbie,
snapshot?
here's what I would do if you and I were in a coaching session. I'd ask you, Debbie, what are you most comfortable doing? Because here's the thing: if I can't run deep in the 4 or 5 things that you're comfortable doing with regard to lead generation, then and you don't have some kind of solid follow up methodology, right? Then you're not going to make it. And so I'm not going to tell you that you have to do anything. What I'm going to do is ask you, right?
Okay. Okay.
So I can give you 15 different ways to generate leads, but then I'm going to ask you, hey, let's talk about mastery. How can we find some comfort level? I know you don't want to door knock, and I know that you don't want to do social media, and I know that you don't like open house. Great. None of that is so specifically a problem. But what I do need to do is I need to have you meet a brand new person every day
So
for the
just
rest
one.
of your life. Sure. Because
Okay.
if you're following up with that person correctly, that's all you need.
I love it. So that's good. I just joined BNI, Business Networking International, a
Yeah,
year
yeah,
ago. I
yeah.
never did it before because I didn't want to leave the house when the kids were there and
Right.
early in the morning before COVID, and it was in person. Now a lot is on Zoom, but I am really loving it because it is a formal way to network. We're there to network and help the other businesses. And I'm number one because I've always given referrals and it's easy for
Right.
me to give referrals to other people. It's a little harder for a realtor, but I still believe that it will work eventually. And I have gotten leads, but um, it's so nice because we log in these one-on-ones. So my commitment verbally right now is, they say do one-on-one a week, and so I've
Right.
been upping it. I need so every day. You're every day or once a week? Did you say we should be meeting a new person or having a conversation?
I'd prefer, like, ideally, I want you to meet a brand new person every day.
Okay, I love it. And the cool thing about BNI, I'm like a preacher for BNI now, but there's a whole list of people in the database. It's like you could go to and book those appointments. So I am going to do that because I love to meet new people, and obviously I like to interview people. So it's an easy thing for me to do. I feel like we have to do open houses because then people can see you, touch you, feel you. When you're at an open house, they might know your name and see your advertising, but they don't really know who you are and what your heart's
Right.
like until they can meet you. So I really feel it is important to be out there so people can see you. So, okay. And I do so follow up, let's talk about that. I do try to write a handwritten note to them, send an
Mhm.
email at the minimum. I usually find everyone, as soon as I meet someone like you or anyone, it's like I go right to LinkedIn and connect with those people. Is there anything else I should be doing?
I think all that is super valuable, but let's talk about what you do for a living and who you are. Are you just following up because you're trying to make friends with people? Or are you following up because you're a real estate professional who's positioning yourself for a future transaction? Right. And so, um, I think a little bit of both is absolutely fine, right? But the people that I work with, I have a tendency to like help them skew more towards professional and a little less toward personal. And you have to care about the people that you're engaging. But even with my market snapshot methodology, right? Here's the truth is that if someone gets that from me or one of my agents or one of my every year on the anniversary, what happens is after the second year, okay, after the third year, by default, you've become that person's realtor. Even though
That's
you've not done a transaction with them, you've become a trusted ally, a trusted source for that information. Now, do I have other methods? Absolutely. And like I said, hey, how are you adding people to the list? Because most coaches are going to tell you that your list by just basic attrition is going to contract between 10 and 15% annually.
mhm.
So when you say, well, how many people is enough? Well, 300 and 500. I think you can run deep in my methods to 500 people, right? At about 350, you're going to need to grow your team because I think effectively we can do maybe 20 to 25 transactions personally, but you got to grow past that. And so, but after you get to a thousand people, that's 60, 6% of 1,000 is 60 transactions. Let's say you're a crappy closer and only half those people use you. Great. You're at 30 transactions. But as you're adding people to your list year over year, you're sorting and filtering and sorting and filtering, and you do start creating a solid client base. Like any business, this just doesn't happen overnight. I think you have to be very intentional. And I think once you get to year 5 in this very simple thing that I do every day, um, you could have as many as, I don't know, 1,500 to 2,500, 3,000, 5,000. I have a database with, 50 or 60,000 realtors in it. And I regularly engage between 200 and 300 of those people monthly.
Wow.
And I'm still only working about 30 hours a week. And so just like people who are listing their house, they don't need to hear from you constantly. They need to hear from you when they're ready. Now, you don't have to be psychic to figure that out. There are CRM methodologies that say, okay, these people have been in your database for 10 years and they transacted 8 years ago and they are in their mid 40s. So the statistical likelihood is that they're going to transact in the next 2 years because we know if they're buyers who buy and live in properties, they're going to buy 4 properties, in their lifetime. They're going to start at the age of 27 and that's going to be over at 65. But so blah, blah, blah. But for God's sakes, pick up the phone. And so I work with agents like yourself or others who I'm going to ask you, hey, what do you think the best reason is to make a phone call? Let's put that in your words so that you can say it, right?
Right.
And so it's so comfortable that you'll do it because I know that the only thing that's going to make sense is we have to rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. We have to do things that are really boring. I think the most powerful parts of being a realtor are also it's not when you're cashing the check, for God's sakes. It's that long, winding road to the appointment. You're like, oh, no one told me it was going to be like this.
So let's talk about, I'm going to start making my calls. I'm going to meet these
Yeah,
people. Let's say I'm doing a one-on-one with a BNI person. So I always come from it as, to a fault. How can I help them? I
sure.
really like to refer people. So I don't talk myself up enough because I'm trying to add value to them. So
Mhm.
how could I be a little more equal and, make it more beneficial to me as well?
Okay. I'm so glad you asked me that because I'm going to teach you something about agile project
Great.
management that is going to it's going to change your world.
Yay.
In fact, I guarantee it. So in the 90s, I think I might be a couple of years older than you are, but in the 90s, there was this whole trend where like we're going to take all the office furniture out of the conference room and we're going to have a stand-up meeting in the in the hallway. Get rid of the desks, everybody. Get rid of the chairs, right? And that concept came out of an agile ceremony that we call a DSU, a daily stand-up. DSU, daily stand-up. Okay. Now, the idea was taken and bastardized, and then you had all these comedy routines around it. But let's talk about what a DSU ceremony is. When I am in a session with someone, and my sessions last 10 or 15 minutes, no more, I ask them a simple question: what are you doing today, right? That's driving value toward your goal. Number two, um, what do you got to get done by the end of the week? And number three, what impediments do you have? That's it. And I'm looking for a real answer. I'm not looking for, well, when the dog has cancer again.
Okay, let's do it real. Okay, so
So,
I,
Debbie, let me ask you,
yeah,
what do you need to get done by the end of the week?
well, I have 5 listings. We had 6. We just put one into escrow, but the market's been not so great. The buyers are not,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of urgency right now. The houses look great and we're just not getting a lot of activity. So I have 5 houses that I need to sell. They'll all be
Okay.
open on Sunday. But I also need to get new clients and probably buyers at this point.
Well, we all have needs, but I'm asking you, what do you got to get done by the end of the week? Right. So I drill into your behavior. So you said you had 5 homes you have to sell. Are all those have to get those sold by the end of the week?
No, I mean, it
Okay.
would be nice.
Could you select one or two? Like, I'm sure you've got some people out there at this point. These are your listings, right?
These are listings, so I'm putting them out on social
And I
media.
could only imagine that one or two of them, maybe they're falling out of love. Could be. I don't know. So let's talk about the one or two that you would consider critical, and like let's talk about what you have to do between like this weekend to do something about that. And so we just crossed over a line, right? So we're trying to formulate you into, I need an action item today out of you that you're going to deliver today, right?
Okay.
And then I'm going to ask you, and what impediment do you have to get that done, right? So one of the things that we do badly as realtors is we get into the narrative of I need this and I need this and I need this and I need this. I'm like, no, 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 no. All of that's not going to happen by the end of today. Like, what is the one thing you have control over today that you can execute on today? And do you have any impediments? Any impediments for that thing? Right. So let's pick one of your listings and what can you do specifically to get that price reduction that you need before now and the weekend?
Oh, so call the client and discuss the price reduction.
And is that going to be effective?
They might say, let's wait till after the weekend.
Mhm. So you've already formulated so what you need to do before you make that call is do some research and formulate an argument. Can you get that done between now and 3 o'clock?
Okay. Yes. Go on the MLS, pull some comps.
Great. My call is over. That's my 10-minute call.
Okay.
Because here's what happens. You can't contemplate getting everything done that you have to get done over the course of your next 5 years, right? What you have to
Right.
do is you have to maximize today. You have to maximize the moment that you're in. And how do we do this? We prioritize our projects, right? So when I
Okay.
list a property, it's a project, and I have stakeholders, and I have resources, and I've got a timeline, right? All of these are part of project management. If uh, my stakeholders have changed their mind about their preferred outcome, for God's sakes, I'm not in that project any longer. Period. which is why I ask a ton of questions during my listing presentation about, what's your core motivation for doing this? When you do this, will it satisfy, your end goal, right? What's the end goal? Well, the end goal is we want a lot of money. All right. Well, what's the end goal with that money? Because I think it's a horrible idea to sell real estate. Real estate is probably one of the best investments on the planet. So if you can maintain it, you should keep it forever. I think selling's a horrible idea. Well, we need the money. You're like, oh, great. Well, we want to get a replacement property, want to pay off our student loan. Little Judy needs gender reassignment surgery. We have to have so many expenses. At which point you're like, man, I don't think you're going to have enough. Can we pare that down? What's out of that list? What's most important, right? And so, just like you prioritize your clients, I'm prioritize agent, right? Pare it down to the art of the achievable for today, right?
Okay.
And I'm not highly prescriptive because I ask. Most agents know exactly what to do most of the time. They just need a little backstop. They just need someone else to say, I think that's a great idea. I think you should do that first. And then the last thing that I do is I say, so do me a favor. And I'm taking notes while we're having this conversation, by the way. And as soon as I hang up, you get a session update from me. We talked about the listing. We talked about your listing, and we talked about negotiating price reduction. And here are the action items around that. Do some additional research, formulate a discussion around, formulate a logical discussion around that. Well, what would that be? You already know what it is. Well, we're going into the fourth quarter. All the overpriced listings are either expiring or getting withdrawn. And a lot of people aren't looking for that 7-bedroom house any longer, or because guess what? School started, right? And there's fewer buyers in the market. In order for you to be really attractive for the latecomers, you're going to have a compelling argument around price. If not, you're going to be in this home for another 6 to 8 months. Is that acceptable to you?
Right.
Is that a logical discussion? And they'll say, yeah, as a matter of fact, that's we're going to stay. Well, I don't want to be Captain Obvious, but Debbie, have you ever forced anyone to sell a house? Never.
No. Well, these people, for example, these people don't live in the house and they'd like to unload the property. So they do have some motivation, I would think. I mean,
well, that's true, but they have some motivation, but you're not totally clear on what it is. So here's one of my questions I always ask. So when it comes to selling the property, do you have plans for the proceeds of the sale of the house? And they'll say, well, I just don't let that off. Right. I'm like, all right. So if you were to raise another $1.5 million, what are your plans? What are your plans with that? Because just stacking up more money in a bank account, I mean, it's fun. Let's be honest. It's a lot of fun, but money is only there to empower your choices. So what are your, if you had that $1.5 million, why? Well, I don't know. Jim doesn't really want to sell. I'm like, ding, 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 ding.
right.
Dump. Well, that $1.5 million, you could divorce Jim. Right.
Okay, we've got to go to commercial break real quick, and we'll be right back with Don from Iowa, Coach John. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio. We are here with Don, our coach for the afternoon. And I am taking notes because after I get off this call, I'm going to work on a price reduction and I'm going to ask, what are your plans for the proceeds of this house? After I tell them what's on the market and where we're going and stuff. Right. So I value that a lot. So let's jump back to, okay, we've talked about the CRM. Is there any other touch points you want to, so you said meeting people, try to meet a new person every day. So let's go back to when you're having that one-on-one with another professional, a 20-minute call. What should I make sure I'm including in that, other than how can I help you? Because that's my nature. How can I help you?
Yeah, the daily stand-up ceremony. So I'm sorry, we got it way off on a rabbit trail, but here's the question you need to ask. So I appreciate, like, you're gracious with your time, right? And your time and your attention, and you want to help someone because if you're helping and you're attractive, then then you're going to be in a relationship. Well, you're going to be in a codependent relationship, technically. Just letting you know. Not me. I'm just saying. And so, but why don't you ask that other professional? So, what are you focused on this week? When we're in October. What do you need to achieve between now and the 1st of November? And then just let them talk. And a lot of times they'll say what you just said. Well, I need to wash the car, and I need to like pay off my student loan, and I need I need five more escrows. I need a price reduction. And so then the next thing you're going to ask is, look, if you take those, like, what's the two that you can guarantee that you're going to get done by the end of the month? And then, do you have any impediments? Right. So instead of me saying I'm your accountability partner and I'm going to hound your ass to get that done, what I'm doing is I'm making you settle down. What do you really need to get done? Right. I think we live in a crazy time in society when we are oversaturated with media. We're oversaturated with, like, all this baloney. Like, do you really need to do that? Do you really need to do that? Right? What do you really need to do? Well, I know this. If I meet a new person every day, or 350 people a year, I know that if I follow up with those people correctly, I'm going to be independently wealthy. Is there anything more important than that? Well,
Right.
then you get into the operations of, well, okay, I got 5 listings. A couple of them are maybe a little bit overpriced. One is a crisis situation because of, a death in the family or divorce. So what we do is we get all bogged down in the storyline because we're human beings, for God's sakes. And because we're sales professionals, we have super high soft skills. We're excellent listeners. We want to have empathy. I want to be in a relationship, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
business part of you kind of has to kick in and say, all right, well, what's the art of the achievable? Debbi, between now and, like, November 1, you see these 5 listings. How many of those are going to be under contract? I mean, and what I'm not doing is I'm not trying to bust your chops, but you and I both know at certain price ranges, if a house isn't taken off the market within 60 days, in certain price ranges, right? Depending on your market, and you might be in a high luxury, sometimes sits and sits and sits. But the reason high luxury sits is because people who own high luxury properties, they have other assets.
Right.
They don't need the money, right? That's why
Right.
it's really hard to get a price reduction on a 10 or $12 million second home, because you're like, what are you going to do with the cash? Pay capital gains? Oh, whoops.
So
So,
now let's go over to, I'm a professional speaking to another professional, not a coach. I'm speaking
okay.
to whoever, could be anyone in business, an accountant, an attorney, and I'm developing my relationships with
Yeah.
him or her as an agent, trying to build a relationship. Like I said,
Yep.
it's easy for me to help them, but how do I position myself as well?
Very similar dialogue. So what I do is I'll say, Debbi, I'm fat. Debbi, I hear that you're the best plumber in the Western United States, and I don't know that much about it. But what are some of the challenges that you face right now with your business development? It's the impediment question,
Okay.
right? And just let them talk. Just let them talk, because they're going to say, well, the cost of materials, supply chain management, I don't have any problem with my operations, but I'm a plumber, for God's sakes. I don't know how to, like, they might not use the same vocabulary, but ultimately they're going to say customer acquisition or operations or capital. right? Because it's business, for God's sakes.
Right.
That's it. There's nothing
Right.
else. Well, I don't have enough capital. I don't know. Well, have you thought about revisiting your pricing structure? Because here's the thing, everything is coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're advancing the relationship and it's not a personal relationship, it's a professional relationship, and you have a skill set that's way, 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 like your marketing ability and your sales acumen are like, that's your superpower, for God's sakes. So I don't care if you're talking to an attorney, if you're talking to a plumber, if you're talking to a small business professional, or if you're talking to someone who's operating a division inside of a large company. What's your big obstacle? Well, my biggest obstacle is I just can't find talent. Like, do we as real estate leaders have the same problem? You're like,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, how are you
Yes.
facing that problem? Well, and then you're in a conversation, and conversation and self-exposure, um, like that's that lubrication in
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Like if you just can't, I care about your business, right?
Right.
How are you addressing those problems? Because I've been able to fix that in my business. And I love the referral thing. So it's one of the core ways that I teach people to add um, to their database, right? I want you
Mm-hmm.
to go out, I want you to meet 5 plumbers, and I want you to go to the dry cleaners, and I want you to do this and this and this. And the people that I have that are struggling in social media, I'm like, I want you to create a YouTube channel, and I want you to go interview your dry cleaner. Or I want you to go to that restaurant and go have a meal. And I don't want you to take a picture of your food. I want you to talk to the chef. I want you to talk to the owner, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do that. I'm like, well, let's do this. Let's break it down as a sprint. And first we'll figure out video, and then we'll figure out audio, and then we'll figure out editing. And this process is going to take 3 months, right? But I'm going to coach you every step along the way. And every time we talk, I'm going to give you a 10-minute assignment. What I need you to do is go to Amazon and buy some better lighting. I need you to watch a video on better lighting, right? So with my method, what I do is I literally will type that up and they get it right after my session, but they'll also get a text from me, or they'll get a phone call from me, or they're going to get another email from me within 3 days saying, hey, did you do that thing? Right. After you finish, get back on my calendar. I'd love to talk to you about it. Right. And then we engage in like tumbling through time. Did you do that thing? If you didn't, that's totally fine. I'm not your dad. I don't care if you did it or not. If you didn't do it and we've talked about it for 3 weeks, I'm going to ask you another question. Is this really a priority? Is this a non-negotiable? Because if it is, you need to find someone who can do this for you for $25 an hour.
Right.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then that becomes the new topic, right?
Right. Right. No, it's holding people accountable and giving them a task. But I love that you do these 10 to 15 minute meetings. So they have no excuse to find 10 or 15 minutes. It's if you have an hour and you're like, oh, and then something comes up, then it could be canceled and postponed. So I love
Right.
that it's short little
So,
bits.
but I also do something that I call sniping. and So everybody has access to my calendar, and the only thing is it's blacked out 24 hours. So when I wake up in the morning, I can see exactly who I'm going to talk to for the day, right? Now, if I'm looking at a blank screen, I open up my database and I sort it from last engagement, like latest engagement to first engagement, and I make a phone call. Debbi, last time we talked about that you were working on a price reduction on a property, and you were going to formulate an argument and do some research. Did you get that done? And so that's the voicemail that I'm leaving them, for goodness sakes. Now, Debbi's like, holy crap! Who is this guy? And when you start doing that with a couple hundred people, and you're literally just reading off the last conversation notes that we had, I can make 50 of those phone calls in a couple of hours, but the impact is staggering
Right.
because statistically, I know that there's a certain percentage of people in my database that are they can't they're stuck. I'll send out a broadcast email to everybody in my database and I'll say, "Hey, I just want to make sure you're not stuck today. If you're stuck, for God's sakes, get on my calendar." And it goes out to 500 people, and I'll get 30 appointments on my calendar like that.
Wow. And how are people paying you? If someone wants to hire you, how are you charging your clients so someone can?
Oh, I take gold teeth and beaver pelts.
That's the Iowa man in you.
I just couldn't stop. So my Newport Beach pricing is still in play, and so I charge people. Are you sitting down? $99 a month for unlimited access to me,
Wow, that
and
is
there's no
amazing.
contract. You can cancel anytime.
That is amazing. $99 a month, and they have access to you whenever they want to call.
If you want to talk to me twice a week, if you want to talk to me, then that's fine. If you want to talk to me once a month, what happens is I typically, because people, it's not a lot of money, right? And so one of the main reason why people fall out of other national coaching, right, is because they reach some sort of understanding and then they start doing it and they feel like they've got it and then they stop, right? Because they can't justify spending $900 a month,
Right.
right? And so this is the main reason I never paid for coaching, because I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, I happened to be selling houses in 1992 when the largest national coach was in Southern California on Huntington Beach smoking weed. And I was in the Marine Corps and doing real estate transactions. So I'm just letting you know, like, no coach should get 1,000 a month or 500 a month. I'm sorry. You're not worth it. You're just not worth it. I think if you want to make $1 million a year, go sell real estate, for God's sakes. I think that if you're going to be a coach, if you find process and system and method and you're really, really good at it, then you're going to maybe cap out at around 200 grand. If you're making more than 200 grand as a coach, then you're stealing from people.
I love
Sorry.
it. No, I think what we do is
Just how I feel.
I like it. No, I think it's really great. And I will definitely refer people to you. We just have to hold people as a coach. We have to hold people accountable like you're doing. You're calling them up and you're like, we talked about this. We've got the info. Let's just follow through. I
Well, and
love the model.
it's not a punishment.
Mhm.
Look, if this isn't a priority to you, then let's figure out what is. Like, if your priority is drinking heavy before noon and watching the Beverly Hillbillies, for God's sakes, do that. I don't care, but you're not going to be a successful business person. And that's fine. My coaching is probably not for you. And what's nuts, Debbie, is I give a free month of, like, $99 is nothing, right? But I give a free month to people because I try to eliminate all the excuses, right?
I love
And
it.
people are like, well, why, what's the catch? What's the catch? I'm like, it's going to cost you more than 99 bucks. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm going to ask you to make a fundamental change in your behavior.
Right.
And that's a hell of a lot more costly. Like, just because you have money to pay doesn't mean that you can change your behavior, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people have lost weight on Jenny Craig and all these other diet things. That's fine. But, Weight Watchers, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And people have fine success with that. But at the end of the day, if you eat fewer calories and you work out on a regular basis and you drink plenty of water and sleep, you're going to lose weight, because all those other people are doing is pre-measuring the food,
Right.
adding a lot of salt so that you drink a lot of water. Bada boom, bada bang,
Disgusting.
right? It's
So we have to
disgusting.
wrap
It's not.
it up. But what words of wisdom can you give to agents, new agents coming into real estate in a whole different time? Before, there was, when you started and I started, there was no
Yeah.
internet, there was no social media. It was harder for us to connect with people. What are a couple tips you can give to new agents coming into the market?
Yeah, so get face to face for God's sakes. So I understand technology is wonderful. I happen to have tech chops, but that technology should be only utilized to drive you into a better face to face engagement.
Love that.
Technology is not an excuse, and it's not a relationship. It's just not. Maintaining another system is not productivity. It's just not. Um, but I'll tell you, here's the real advice: perseverance pays.
Hmm.
And I've wanted to step out of I've wanted to step out of real estate more than once in my career, over 32 and a half years now, right? 2008, holy crap. I started my first brokerage in 2005, 6 rental properties. 2008 came. I lost everything. I lost everything except all the lessons that I learned. And it, from 1992 to 2008, I had amassed quite a bit of, you know, assets and money and property. Lost everything in 2008. But here's the nutty thing: with the experience that I learned over that time, I replaced everything within the next 2 years after that. By 2010, mid 2011, I'd replaced everything that I'd lost, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Perseverance, for God's sakes. Number one. Number two, always stay curious. Always stay curious. Don't just go after flashy crap like I need to learn AI. I need to learn it. If you don't have a college degree, you're not going to make it. If you don't have a Facebook account, you're going to fail. If you don't understand AI, you're going down the tubes. Like, holy crap, like every 10 years I hear something that's just abjectly ridiculous. Perseverance pays. Get face to face. For God's sakes, let go of your fear as fast as you possibly can. You're not going to fail. You're not going to fail. You're going to learn. There's going to be some bumps, but there's no place on the planet like the United States of America where you can go into a business with high school education and the will to succeed and make a 7-figure income and be a small business owner. That doesn't exist anywhere else.
That is
Uh,
so true. Wow, that is so true. Thank you so much, Don. This was so fun. I look forward to having you on again. We have so much more to talk about, and I think I'm going to take advantage of your free monthly and change everything that I need to change and to move forward and to do even more in 2025. So thank you, Don, for being on my show today. It was such a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well, it's my pleasure. And, I'm an open book. I'm pretty easy to find. I don't do a lot of public things, and it's intentional, quite honestly. I don't need bigger and greater and more. What I need to do is continually run deep on the people who need me the most.
Love
And
that.
I don't need a stadium. I just need that next person sitting in front of me.
Love
And
it. You have a
thank you for
good.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending today, Mastering the Art of Real Estate. We look forward to seeing you next Friday.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Real Estate with host Debbi DiMaggio. Here Fridays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. Tune in to where real estate matters matter.